Gather round, let the stories unfold from the pages of old where the brave hearts are told. Women of wisdom, fire in their eyes, rising up high, ready to claim the skies. We're shining bright like a beacon of grace, echoes of faith in this timeless space. From Esther to Mary, the strength we embrace. 21st century woman, let's run this race.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good next day, wherever you are, at whatever time zone you are watching. Hello, it's great to have you with me today for Women for Global Impact, Women of the Bible. Hey, Money Mastery for her, Elder Lexi, so nice to see you. I'm excited to be here with you again today. If you're just joining me for the very first time, I'm Dr. Joan T. Randall. I am the Women's Ministry Director for I Believe God Ministries International, and I'm a serial entrepreneur doing multiple business, real estate, and publishing, and I'm excited to be here with you again today. So we're in the season, the series, this season. That's what I meant to say. We are in the series for the season called Silent Sisters of Service. And these are women that had amazing experiences and did tremendous things in the Bible, but were not called by a specific name. And although they weren't called by a name, their acts of service is noteworthy. And so we are focusing on them for the first season of 2026. So last week we focused on the woman with the jar of oil, and today we're going to be talking about the Shunammite woman. The Shunammite woman. Her story can be found in 2 Kings 4, verses 8 through 37. And if you jump over in chapter 8, you will also see the almost like the second half of her story in verses 1 through 6. So you can find her name in both those places. But the beginning of her story is in 2 Kings 4, verses 8 through 37. And it is so funny when I read this because she was called the Shunammite woman because she was from that region, Shunem, right? And it's funny as you read it and see how Elisha addressed her as the Shunammite. He didn't even say the woman. He just said the Shunammite, right? And so that's what we know her as. So who is she? She's unnamed, but she was an influential woman because depending on the version of the Bible you read, like I love reading the NIV, and it calls her well-to-do, right? So when you see that word well-to-do, you know that she's influential, she has money, she has status. And so, you know, that the Bible lets you know that this wasn't a woman of menial means. This was a woman of like massive means. So she's influential, she's wealthy. The scripture also calls her, again, in some versions of the Bible, a great woman, not because of her title, but because of her capacity, right? Because of her capacity. So where is she from? As you heard me say, she's called Shunammite because she's from Shunem, right? It's a town in the Jezreel Valley. And this was a fertile place, very agricultural region in ancient Israel. Now, Shunem, if you look at just that word, right? That place is a crossroads. And so as you look at this woman's life, she was also at a crossroads. She didn't know it at the time when she met Elisha, but she was at a crossroads, right? And so this crossroad was symbolic in her life. She stood at the intersection of hospitality and harvest, right? although she didn't know what was going to happen to her when she first met this man, as you read her story, you now recognize that she stood at the intersection of hospitality and a harvest, right? Or faith and foresight. And so when she saw this man, Elisha, kept coming to Shunem, she decided that she was going to do something special for him. She recognized the presence of God on Elisha even before she knew anything about him, right? That's foresight. That's discernment. But she recognizes the presence of God on Elisha and took the initiative to support the prophetic work before she even need anything, right? She spoke to her husband and she said to her husband, this is what we should do for this man. All right. So she's an emotionally intelligent woman. She's spiritually discerning and she's economically resourced, but she is submitted to divine call. That's the beautiful thing about her, submitted to the divine call. So I like to go back and look at women just to see where they're from, what tribe they're associated with, what is their cultural experiences. And so in looking at this woman from Shunem, right? Shunem, people of Shunem are connected to the tribe of Issachar, right? And let me tell you, most often the characteristics or the behaviors of these women gives you an understanding of who they are and where they're from. I'm telling you, like Jamaican people are a certain kind of way, you know, people from the Caribbean are a certain kind of way. People from London are a certain kind of way. People from, you know, the continent of Africa are a certain kind of way, right? You look at these people and you associate them with their cultural background, their economic upbringing, right? And so when you look at the tribe of Issachar, Issachar actually was one of Jacob's son. Now, if you look at his lineup, how he lines up in Jacob's sons, the line, he was Jacob's ninth son. Yeah, he was Jacob's ninth son. He was Leah's fifth son, right? Because remember, like Leah had like two sets of children. Like she had, you know, a set of children. Then she gave her person to Jacob. That person had two children. Then she came back and had two more children with her husband, right? So this was her second set of sons. So he was Leah's fifth son. And so when you look at the tribe of Issachar, they're known for wisdom and discernment. They're known for understanding times and seasons. They're known for strategic positioning, and they're known for reward and rate and wages. So they're known for their fruitfulness. And so this DNA is what shows up in this woman. So let's look at what she did, right? So she perceived spiritual value before she even wanted to benefit from anything. And as the story go, right, this man came all the time, Elisha. And this woman went to her husband and said to her husband, let us build a room on top of our roof for this man of God, so that when he comes into town, he has a place to stay. They were wealthy enough to be able to do that. So in her upper room or on top of her roof, she built a room for Elisha and put a bed and a table and a chair and a lamp in that room. And so whenever Elisha would travel to Shunem, that's where he would stay, in his room. Now, one of the things that he had said to her was he had given her a prophetic message one day and told her that she would have a son, right? And she said to him, man of God, please don't give me a promise that will not come true, right? I'm kind of paraphrasing. Don't give me a promise that will not come true. But, right, Elisha knew that a year from the date that he told her that she would give birth to a son, and she did. She gave birth to a son, and her son was growing up. Now, one day, the son went out to meet his father where they were reaping a harvest. And her son said, Father, I have a headache, right? My head hurts. So the father took the son back to his mother to let his mother know that the boy's head has been hurting all day. The mother took her son in her arms. The son laid on the mother and then consequently passed away. So that was devastating. And remember, one of the things she had said to Elisha was, don't make me a promise that's not going to work out. And here she is. The promise has been fulfilled. But now the very same promise that she prayed for, she hoped for, that Elisha promised her came to pass, but now he is dead, right? So this was devastating to her. I want to give you 3 speaking points on this story because there's something incredible about the story that I think is so timely for such a time as this. I'm watching my time because, I got to be on a certain time for such a time as this. So the very first speaking point, hey, Elder, nice to see you. The very first speaking point is discernment creates access, right? So she didn't wait to be asked to build this room. She knew and recognized, to have the discernment, that this man Elisha was a man of God, that this man Elisha was a prophet, that she had the resources to provide for this man, right? That's where hospitality comes in, to provide for this man. She didn't wait to be asked, right? She recognized that this is something that she needed to do, because in 2 Kings chapter 4 and verse 9, it says, I perceive that this is a holy man of God. And perception right there is her spirit of discernment. So she built this house and she did all the things for him. She got it done. And this is where part number 2 comes in. Number 2, she prepared her position before the promise. So there was preparation positions you for promises. Amen. Preparation positions you for what God's promises you. How amazing, right? So she built the room before the miracle. It was not like Elisha said to her, you're going to have a son, and her being so excited. She said, oh my God, how can I repay you? Let me build this room. No, she built that room out of the goodness out of her heart, out of all the things that's in her, right? The fact that she had the resources, the fact that she was well-to-do, the fact that she had the money, the fact that she understands times and season because she's from the tribe of Issachar, right? The fact that she knows what fruitfulness means because she's from the tribe of Issachar. And so she built the room before the miracle, right? So the insight right here is that the promise of a son came after she gave hospitality, after she gave sustained hospitality. So she didn't build it after, she built it before. So she was preparing herself for a promise that she didn't even recognize was going to be promised to her. Right. And so what I want to point out here is that faith that prepares attracts the promises, right? Faith that prepares attracts the promises. All right. So the promise was made and now the promise is dead, right? The promise is dead. So what is going to happen when the promise is dead? So when her husband recognized that the baby is dead, the husband pretty much asked her if she needed him to go get the man of God. And she said, no, I'm fine. I'm good. Composed. She said, I'm good. And she asked the husband to send a helper and a donkey and something else. And she rode to go find the man of God, right? On her way, remember, she didn't make a scene. She didn't set the alarm. She didn't cry. She didn't holler. She didn't weep. She just calmly said to her husband, prepare the donkey, prepare the thing. I'm going to go and I'm going to find the man of God. On her way to find the man of God, the man of God's servant said to her, like was trying to stop her, said to her, what is the issue? She literally said, nothing is the issue. I am good. All she wanted to go to was the man of God. Let me tell you what I love about that. She didn't create a ruckus, right? She was composed. Composure is a weapon. Composure is a weapon that will defeat the enemy, right? That will defeat the enemy. And so she composed herself, right? When her promise died and her husband asked her how she feels, she said, it is well. It is well. So she bypassed panic. She bypassed hollering. She bypassed all the things that in her heart made her so disappointed that her promise had died. Why? Because she had to go directly to the authority. She wanted to go directly to the source. She wanted to go directly to the man who had prophesied about her son. What does that show us? That showed us maturity in faith, wisdom in faith. She did make a fuss to her husband. When Elisha's servant tried to stop her from seeing Elisha, she bypassed him. And when she got to Elisha, she literally, went down to his feet. Elisha didn't know what was wrong, but he surmised that she was in pain. Before I go any further into the result and what is our takeaway from modern time, I'm just going to go right ahead and take a quick 22-second break, and I'll be right back.
Today's sponsor is Global Impact University Consulting, LLC. Are you ready to receive your theology degree? Contact them today.
All right, welcome back. If you're here with me, we are talking about the Shunammite woman, and we're on the series called Silent Sisters of Service. And the Shunammite woman is the second woman that we're featuring in our 12-week or quarterly series for Women for Global Impact, Women of the Bible. I'm doing so many things, my head starts spilling out of my head. But anyway, so I left off by saying that composure is a weapon against the enemy, because that's exactly what she did, right? I want to remind you of what all the stuff that she went through. So she built an upper room for the prophet way before she even knew that she was going to get a prophecy, right? Then she received a prophetic word. The prophetic word came to pass and she had a son. Greetings, Apostle. Nice to see you. She faced devastation over the death of her son. But instead of going into small talk or panic or emotional leakage or emotional upheaval or pain or, sorrow, she just said, it is well, right? And then she went straight to the source of power. She went straight to the source of power. She held her posture from the moment her child died, because after her son died in her lap, she took him and placed him in the bed in the same room that she had built for Elisha, right? So she held her posture all the way until she got to the man of God. So The third speaking point that I wanted to talk about, which I kind of almost used it already, is the composure, right? She didn't fall apart. She stood firm until, get this, power met the problem. She stood firm until power met the problem. Here's the thing that I want to share with you today in spiritual maturity, spiritual wisdom, spiritual discernment, is that not everyone should get access to your crisis. My God, not everyone should get access to your crisis. Not everyone should know what you are experiencing. Who is in your circle? Who are you talking to? Not everybody needs to know what the pain is. Sometimes we've just got to be silent until power meets the problem, right? Emotional restraints protects momentum, because there are some times when we share our pain with some people who go and talk about our pain and makes it worse. Go tell somebody who tells somebody else who tells somebody else, and then by the time it get to that person, it changed, the whole story change. Sometimes you just got to keep it until power meets the problem, right? And don't explain your pain to people who can't resurrect your purpose. Don't explain your pain to people who cannot resurrect your purpose. Get to the source. Get to the source. And in today, our source might look different. Our source might be a doctor. Our source might be a psychologist. Our source may be a mentor. Our source may be a pastor. Yes, we know God is always our source, but God works through people. All right. So I wanted just to share with you how she handled her dead son. She got to the promise so that the promise and the power could fix the problem. And then what happened? Elisha went back. And Elisha went back to the room, saw the dead boy on his bed, and Elisha laid on top of him, right? Eyes to eyes, nose to nose, mouth to mouth, laid his whole body on top of this woman's son. And in response, hallelujah, in response, the heat from Elisha's body started to penetrate this dead boy's body, right? And then he got up and then he laid across him again until this young man came back to life. How amazing is this, right? The source, the power came and fixed the problem. So if we have to look at this in modern day, let's look at this modern day, right? A woman who invests in others, because that is exactly what this Shunammite woman did. She invested in Elisha before Elisha even told her about the prophecy, right? A woman who invests in others build space for growth and later must advocate for what she believes God promised. This is the part that I love, right? Because she invested in Elisha, right? Whether or not she invested in him, right? And he made a promise to her. The prophecy was the promise. The prophecy was fulfilled. The promise was fulfilled. Now the promise is gone. So she's going back to the source to say, I told you not to make me a promise. That is not going to be true, right? And so she went back and demanded, advocated for what she believed God promised her. I'm telling you, when you have that relationship with God, that you can go to him and you can stand firm and you say, God, I am not leaving here. I'm not leaving here till you fix it. I am staying right here. I'm going to wrestle with you even if you hit me in my hip and I have to limp for the rest of my life. I'm staying right here and I am wrestling with you, Lord, until you bless me. Right? Faith knows when to be silent and when to stand firm. right? Faith knows when you keep the stuff to yourself. Faith knows when you in a problem and you ain't telling nobody. Faith knows when your stuff is falling apart and you're keeping it. You're showing up with a smile on your face, but there's some issues, right? Faith tells you when it is okay for you to say to the people who are saying, what's happening to you? I haven't seen it in a long time. And just say, it is well. All is well. Even when something is dying on the inside. All is well, my sister. All is well, my brother. Why? Because you are on your way to the source. You're on your way to the power. And because they are not the source, they are not the power, they can't resurrect what is dying. Don't tell them anything. Don't share it with them. Faith knows when to be silent and when to stand firm, right? Now, this is the part of the story I love, because in chapter 8, right? So all of that happened. Her son was alive. Then Elisha knew that there was a famine that was going to come to Shunem. And so Elisha gave her the message and said, leave this place. Leave, right? Go somewhere else until the famine is past, and then you can come back. When she left to go to another place, and I can't get into the whole of the story because I got like a couple of minutes left, but she stayed away from Shunem for 7 years. 7 years. 7 years. 7 years. Oh my God. The number of completion. And by this time, she had lost a lot, because remember, she was well-to-do. She was wealthy. She had money. She lost a lot, leaving her wealth, her riches behind, just so that she wouldn't be a part of the famine. So she went away for 7 years to escape the famine. And then when it was time for her to come back, they sent for her to say, come back, right? Long story short, she ended up going in front of the governor. I'm calling them a governor, the people that are in charge. And when Elisha told the story, well, Elisha's servant told the story to the people in charge as to how Elisha had worked a miracle in her son's life. And when they asked Elisha, he said, yes, that's what I did. When they asked the woman, she said, yes, he brought my son back to life. Let me tell you what God did in that moment. They gave this woman everything back, everything she had lost, and then some. Multiplication of what she had walked away from. So here is the premise for the Shunammite woman, right? She teaches us that you don't need a name to have authority, baby. You ain't need no name. They didn't call her a name. They did not call her a name. You don't need, come on, sis, kingdom math. You don't need a name to have authority. You don't need lack to have faith. You don't need lack to have faith. You can have faith when you have money, right? You don't need lack to have faith. Faith comes when you believe, when you give God the opportunity, when you say to him, Lord, I'm available to you. Lord, I'm going to be obedient to you. Lord, I'm standing on your promises. I'm advocating for the promises that you make to me. That's faith, right? You don't beg for miracles. You build for them. You don't beg for miracles. You build for them. You build it for them. She built the room for Elisha. She built it. And in her faith, in her hospitality, in her generosity, she was rewarded over and over again. You steward promises by how you respond when you are tested. How you respond when you are tested. All right, I'm done. I'm wrapping up. She was wealthy, but teachable. She was influential, but submitted. She was prepared and still obedient. So today, my reflection question for you is this: how do I respond when faith is tested by some type of loss? How do I respond when faith is tested by some type of loss? Listen, I hope this was great. I hope you took some nuggets from this. I hope this was, you know, allowed you to see the story from a different perspective. And thank you for being with me today. I look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place, for another Silent Sister of Service as we dig deep and dive into the women who have made amazing impact without their names being called. God bless you. Love you all. Talk to you soon. Bye, guys.
Deborah's courage, Rahal's bold heart, lessons of love, each a crucial part. Together we stand, hand in hand we rise. With faith like a river, we'll chart the skies. We're shining.